On the fateful day of November 8, 1942, upon the shores of Ferrok Beach, Algeria, a new chapter in warfare began as the first American infantry units stormed the coast during Operation Torch. They carried with them a clandestine weapon, a mystery to all but a select few, concealed within crates ominously marked "Secret." Inside lay 5,000 brand new M1 rocket launchers, soon to be immortalized by a single, unforgettable name, the Bazooka. To the soldiers, these were merely enigmatic steel tubes, delivered without instruction, without training, and without any inkling that this crude-looking device was destined to rewrite the very calculus of armored combat. In a breathtakingly short span of less than 2 years, the Bazooka would compel the formidable German army to completely overhaul its armored strategies, igniting a frantic race to replicate its design. This revolutionary weapon would elevate the common American infantryman from the hunted to the hunter, forever changing his role on the battlefield. The saga of the Bazooka, however, started months prior, at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, 1904. Colonel Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward All were tasked with showcasing potential anti-tank armaments to a panel of dubious generals, while their British counterparts were busy engineering cumbersome, heavy spigot mortars that tipped the scales at over 100 pounds and demanded highly trained crews. All envisioned something far more elegant in its simplicity. That very morning, with sheer ingenuity, he fashioned a prototype from discarded scrap. A steel tube of perfect diameter plucked from a junk pile, a wire coat hanger masterfully bent into rudimentary sights, and a bit of tape were all it took. The generals, their attention fixated on the more complex mortars they had staked their hopes on, gave it but a cursory glance. As the trials commenced, 5 of the much vaunted spigot mortars were unleashed upon a moving M3 Stuart tank from a distance of 150 yards, yet not a single one found its mark. The weapons were deemed too heavy, too awkward, and too convoluted for practical use. It was then that All stepped into the spotlight with his homemade creation. Wary of the potential danger from the backblast, he donned a welder's mask, hoisted the tube onto his shoulder, peered through the makeshift coat hanger sights, and with a steady hand, squeezed the trigger. A rocket erupted forth, streaking through the air and slamming squarely into the tank's side. In a mere 5 seconds, he had reloaded and struck again. General Barnes, the chief of research and engineering, observed the peculiar device, a laugh escaping his lips as he remarked on its resemblance to comedian Bob Burns's whimsical musical instrument, the bazooka. The name would forever be etched in history. But more significantly, Barnes, in a moment of profound foresight, ordered an immediate production of 5,000 units. What transpired next was one of the most rapid transitions from a mere prototype to full-scale mass production in the annals of American military history. By October of 1942, industrial giants like General Electric, alongside other contractors, were churning out an astonishing 5,000 launchers each month. Each unit was a testament to efficiency, requiring only 20 pounds of steel, basic welding techniques, and simple electrical components. The cost was equally remarkable, a mere 25 for each launcher and just 8 AUD per rocket. This seamless steel tube, 54 inches in length and weighing a paltry 13 pounds, possessed the astonishing capability to pierce up to 4 inches of solid armor from a distance of 300 yards. Captain Franklin Johnson, stationed at Fort Benning, would later attest that a soldier could master the bazooka's use in a single afternoon of training. This stood in stark contrast to the weeks of rigorous training required to become proficient with the 37mm anti-tank gun. With the bazooka, a mere 2 infantrymen could transport this formidable weapon anywhere their squad ventured. It bestowed upon them something they had never possessed before: unwavering confidence in the face of enemy attacks. However, in the crucible of North Africa, during the initial landings of Operation Torch, the bazooka's debut was nearly a catastrophe. On the eve of the invasion, Eisenhower himself made a startling discovery: the men had not even unpacked their new weapons. The bazookas had been delivered in sealed crates, shrouded in secrecy, with strict orders that they were not to be opened until the commencement of hostilities. The troops were thus thrown into the heart of battle, under a hail of fire, forced to decipher the workings of this new weapon without the aid of manuals or prior training. To compound their difficulties, many of the rockets had been rendered useless by saltwater damage sustained during the arduous sea voyage. The 59th Parachute Infantry tragically reported that out of their first 20 rockets, only a meager 7 were functional. Yet, even amidst this chaotic and inauspicious beginning, glimmers of the bazooka's immense potential shone through. On November 10th, the 1st Armoured Division recorded its first triumphant kills, obliterating 2 French Renault tanks near Port Lyoté. The weapon, when it functioned, was devastatingly effective. The Germans, however, were about to experience the full, unbridled fury of the bazooka firsthand. During the pivotal Battle of Kasserine Pass in February 1943, elements of Rommel's legendary Afrika Korps overran American positions, capturing intact launchers and a supply of rockets in the process. Within days, these captured weapons were whisked away to Germany. The brilliance of the bazooka's simplicity was not lost on German engineers. Their technical reports from March 1943 extolled its lightweight design, minimal production requirements, and formidable armor-piercing capabilities. They wasted no time in designing their own, more potent version, scaling up the warhead to a formidable 88mm. By September, the fearsome Raketenpanzerbe case, affectionately nicknamed the Panzerstreck, had entered production. Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily in July 1943, served as the bazooka's first true test against the might of German armor. By this time, American units were equipped with the improved M1A1 model, boasting more reliable and powerful rockets. At Kasserine, paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne achieved a feat of legendary marksmanship, striking a Tiger tank directly through its driver's vision slit. One of its few vulnerable points, German war diaries from the period conceded that enemy infantry now wielded rocket-propelled weapons capable of annihilating armor from a distance of 100 to 150 meters. Colonel James Gavin of the 505th Parachute Infantry eloquently wrote that the bazooka had instilled a newfound and unshakable confidence in his men. In Sicily alone, 17 German tanks fell victim to the bazooka's fiery wrath. More importantly, the paralyzing fear known as tank panic, the helpless terror that had once gripped infantrymen at the approach of armored behemoths, began to dissipate as the tide of war swept into Italy. The bazooka's utility evolved, transforming it into a universal tool of destruction. Soldiers quickly realized its effectiveness extended far beyond tanks, proving equally devastating against bunkers, buildings, and fortified positions. At Ortona, Canadian forces ingeniously used bazookas to blast holes through stone walls, creating new pathways and bypassing deadly, sniper-infested streets. By early 1944, the bazooka had become a standard issue, with every U.S. infantry battalion carrying at least 24 launchers. German commanders were forced to confront a new reality. Their tanks could no longer operate with impunity. New directives were issued, forbidding tanks from advancing into towns without infantry support, and mandating that they avoid buildings within a 100-meter radius unless the area had been thoroughly cleared. In a desperate bid for protection, tank crews began welding spare track links, sandbags, and even concrete to their hulls. By the time of the D-Day landings, thousands of bazooka teams swarmed the beaches of Normandy. In the dense and treacherous hedgerow country, the bazooka proved to be an indispensable asset. American military records credit the bazooka with the destruction of 12% of all German tanks lost in the US sector in the 6 weeks following June 6th. Cheap, portable, and lethally effective, it became as ubiquitous and essential as the rifle and the machine gun. The battle of the Bulge subjected the bazooka and its users to the harshest of tests under brutal winter conditions. Batteries froze and propellant misfired, yet even under these adverse circumstances, bazookas were responsible for destroying or disabling nearly 90 German armored vehicles. Soldiers devised clever ways to keep their rockets warm, tucking them under their coats as they lay in wait for the perfect moment to strike. One sergeant recounted the tale of hitting a Panther tank in its engine deck from 75 yards, forcing its crew to abandon the vehicle. The bazooka's versatility was so profound that even pilots found ways to adapt it for aerial warfare. Major Charles Carpenter, flying a nimble L-4 Grasshopper observation plane, audaciously mounted 6 bazookas under its wings. Throughout 1944, he wreaked havoc on enemy tanks, armored cars, and trucks, earning him the legendary moniker Bazooka Charlie. His improvised flying tank, Killer, became the stuff of military folklore. By the war's end, America had manufactured a staggering 500,000 bazookas and over 15 million rockets. The cost-effectiveness of this weapon was simply mind-boggling. For the price of a single Sherman tank, the Army could procure thousands of launchers and tens of thousands of rockets. German tanks, each costing tens of thousands of Reichsmarks, could be rendered useless by an $8 rocket fired by a 19th-year-old infantryman. Post-war analysis unequivocally confirmed the bazooka's immense impact. 12% of all German tanks destroyed in the European theatre fell to this humble weapon. Yet, the psychological toll it inflicted was even greater. German diaries revealed a startling trend. Many tanks were abandoned not after being hit, but simply at the mere report of bazooka teams in the vicinity. The once unstoppable blitzkrieg, the lightning, fast armoured warfare that had terrorised Europe in 1940, had been brought to a grinding halt, not by superior tanks or massive artillery, but by cheap steel tubes in the hands of ordinary soldiers. The bazooka's legacy extended far beyond the battlefields of World War II. It saw action in the Pacific, where Marines utilized white phosphorus rockets to incinerate Japanese bunkers and caves. At Iwo Jima, nearly 2,000 rockets were unleashed in a fiery torrent. In the Korean War, while the original bazooka struggled against the formidable Soviet-built T-34s, the new 3.5-inch Super Bazooka stopped them in their tracks, restoring the confidence of American infantrymen. From these humble beginnings, the principles of the bazooka spread across the globe, giving rise to a lineage of iconic weapons, including the Soviet RPG series, the British Eliabu, and the Swedish Carl Gustaf, all direct descendants of this revolutionary design. The bazooka was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of industrial democracy in a time of war. Born from scrap metal and a simple coat hanger, it could be assembled in hours, mastered in minutes, and carried anywhere. It embodied the very essence of America's strength, not in its complexity, but in its capacity for mass production, its elegant simplicity, and its unwavering trust in the ordinary soldier. While German engineers prided themselves on crafting technological marvels like the Tiger tank, masterpieces of craftsmanship, but few in number, the bazooka proved that 1,000 cheap weapons in the hands of citizen soldiers could triumph over a handful of technological Goliaths. By the end of the war, German armoured commanders lamented that the American rocket launcher had shattered the tank's aura of invincibility. No longer could armour advance unopposed. Every hedgerow, every window, every pile of rubble now held the potential to conceal a bazooka team. And so, the mighty blitzkrieg was vanquished, not by a clash of titans, but by the simplest of weapons, wielded by men who had never seen one before that fateful day on the beaches of North Africa. That humble steel tube, cheap, simple, and devastatingly effective, helped to bring down the Third Reich, one rocket at a time.